Okay, we're gonna make some boneless pork chops. I mean, basically it's a pork loin that's been cut into, I don't know, it's probably 1.5 inches thick. I love pork chops, they're so versatile. It reminds me of when I was growing up as a kid, like those pork chops and applesauce. That was my mom's like big move. She put a little cinnamon in the applesauce, that was her gourmet situation. But clearly like pork is a very versatile meat. Cooks very fast, especially pork loin or pork chops, because there's very little fat running through it. So it's gonna cook very quickly, and that's a good thing to keep in mind. We don't wanna like overcook the pork too much. We want it to be like medium to medium well. We wanna have like a little bit of pink inside, it's totally fine. Actually, we retain some of that moisture that you want, some of that juiciness. In this marinade, very simple, I squeezed an orange on top of the pork chops with a little olive oil, some salt and pepper, and then some fresh basil. And I'm just gonna like pat them dry so we can get a good sear on the outside of the pork. A little salt and pepper on top as well. Okay, and you can see, like I season pretty liberally. It's like one of the things that separates a professional cook versus a home cook. You know, the people in the business who cook for a living, we really go for it when it comes to seasoning. You know, I think that's one of the things that makes our food taste a little bit more aggressively flavored. So I have a nice cast iron pan here. It doesn't have to be a cast iron pan, but if you have a cast iron pan, it's a good thing to use because it really holds the heat very nicely. And we're gonna put a little bit of, this is canola oil in the pan. You want a very light oil. It could be canola oil, it could be peanut oil, vegetable oil, grapeseed oil, even coconut oil. And we're gonna let this pan get nice and hot. And so, I mean, I think about these pork chops, we're gonna bring some flavor to the game, right? Because pork chops don't have a lot of flavor. I talk about like utilizing things like that you can really bring big flavors into the game. So we have some blue cheese, we have some toasted almonds, some fresh basil. I actually have a little balsamic vinegar over here that I might put on here as well. It's like it's one of the things I always kind of keep out of my pantry. It's actually reduced balsamic vinegar. They call it crema del balsamico modena. You know what I'm talking about, balsamic vinegar. All right, so we're letting our pan get nice and hot, and then we're also gonna utilize some nectarines. You know, clearly, when you think about pork chops and applesauce, I mean, let's face it, it's pork with fruit, right? Especially in the spring, summertime, even, you know, all through the summer, I use tons of stone fruits. I love things like nectarines or peaches, plums, you know, any of those fruits that have the so-called stone in the middle. That goes incredibly well with pork, just across the board, especially pork chops. All right, so let's go over to our pan now. You can see I was like spending a lot of time talking to you while I was waiting for the pan to heat up. That's a cooking show trick right there. And you can see it's starting to smoke a little bit, and we're gonna put it on the seasoned side down. And you wanna hear that sizzle, because we want to get nice, crispy, crusty pork chops. And I'm going to season the other side while they're in the pan. Okay, and you don't want to flip them and turn them. You want to keep them on one side. Let the pan do its job. We want that direct heat from the cast iron pan creating a nice crust on the outside of the pork chop. So if I keep flipping in them and flipping and turning them, what's going to happen? You're not going to give the pork chop enough time to achieve a crust. It's gonna have more of a gray kind of crust on the outside. We want our crust to be nice and brown. So let's go over our ingredients here. So I said we have some quartered nectarines. Actually, these are not very ripe, but we're gonna bring these to life by cooking them. We're gonna get a nice sort of sear crust on the outside of them. Just gonna put a little bit of olive oil on top of the nectarines. I'm gonna season with salt and pepper. All right, and we're gonna cook these in a pan, basically in the same pan, you know, soften them and bring out those sort of natural fruit juices. See, it's starting to get nice and brown there. The basil's starting to become part of it. You see the edges there? Looks good. You want a little crustier. Again, one of those things where like a professional cook is gonna make sure that we get a nice crust on the outside. We're not afraid of burning it. We wanna take it not quite to the edge of cooking it too much, but we definitely want to achieve a contrast of texture. We want that really nice crust on the outside. All right, that looks great. If you notice, I cooked these for about 2 to 2.5 minutes on one side, and we're gonna let it cook on the other side for like about another 30 seconds, just so it starts to cook on the other side as well. These pork chops are only gonna take a few more minutes. Don't overcook them. I'm gonna transfer them to a pan, and we're gonna put them into an oven preheated at about 375 degrees. Let those finish cooking through. Now in the same pan, we're gonna cook our nectarines. A little bit of oil. Put our nectarines down. So a couple of things are happening here. We're gonna get a nice crust on the outside of the nectarines, but also the juices inside, even though it's a little underripe, juices inside of the nectarines are starting to come alive. It's almost like a quick ripening process to your stone fruit. Grab the pork out of the oven. Still needs a minute. Let me show you how I do that. When you touch it, if there's a lot of give to it, if your finger can get to the middle of it really quickly, that means that they're still raw or rare. If the pork is nice and firm, then you know that it's more or less cooked. Put the pork chops down. What I like to do is take my nectarines or peaches, whatever you have. It's almost like a roasted peach salad almost with pork. And then we garnish it with the rest of our ingredients. We have some blue cheese. Now, if you don't like blue cheese, don't feel like you can't make this dish. If you want to put cheese on it, like a fresh goat cheese will work really nicely. It's not as strong as blue cheese. I love blue cheese and stone fruits, especially like nectarines and peaches. I think it works really nicely. We have some toasted almonds here. And what I do is, these are sliced almonds that I toasted a little bit. And so I treat this almost like kosher salt, which has got like the big crystals. I do the same thing with these almonds. I kind of crush them in my hand as I'm kind of pouring them on top. And then a tiny bit of honey. Goes so nice with that blue cheese and those almonds. I'm gonna grab a little bit of my balsamic vinegar. This is optional. I love balsamic vinegar on top of the stone fruits. And then a little fresh basil to kind of emulate and fortify the idea. Marinated in some basil, and then a splash of olive oil. Here we go. Pork chops and roasted stone fruits.